Hello, welcome to Cake and It's Special with me, Lauren. This week I'm going to show you how I made a fairy cake topper. So here we go. So I start with some flour and modelling paste that I have dyed with some Sugar Flare Skin Tone food colouring paste. So I take a section and using my hands I form it into a long petal shape. Then using my finger and thumb I gently pull out a neck and then forming a waist. I'm also using my thumbs to push in some arm sockets. And then I use my knife to cut a flat end at the bottom so this can stand on its own. Before I go crazy with the details, I'm going to push a lollipop stick straight up through the body so it comes out at the top of the neck. If I waited until all the details were in place and then I put the lollipop stick in, the likelihood is I would go and shift some of that detail, which I don't want to do. So, learn from my mistakes. Now I can work on pulling out her boobs and using my sculpting tool to add her collarbone. Once that's done, I can start on her legs. I take more modelling paste and roll out a long cord that is thicker at one end. I use the side of my finger to work in an ankle and a knee. Then flatten out the foot. And pull out a kneecap. So I made two legs, but I want them both positioned differently. I want one where her knee is up, so I attach it to the body with just a little water. And then the other leg I want laying down with the foot resting underneath the first leg. Now they're in position, I can use my knife to add in some toes. Now I've dyed some fondant with some holly green and some ivy green, and I'm going to roll it out nice and thin. Then I paint water onto the torso everywhere that I want the fondant to stick. I cut a straight edge and then wrap the fondant around her. I use a soft dry paintbrush to help me push the fondant into all them difficult places. I also use my knife to cut away a little bit so that it can reach all the way around her body. I didn't want any of this to be on her legs, I just wanted this to cover her torso, so I can cut away the excess. I roll out another long thin piece of my green fondant. This time I'm going to neaten off all the edges. Place it onto a flower pad and use a sculpting tool to ruffle it up. Then wrap it around her waist. I keep overlapping it ever so slightly at the top to help me keep them ruffles. And then I just add a single piece to go over her leg. Now that she's dressed, I can give her her arms. So again, a thin cord of skin tone modelling paste. I use my finger to work in a wrist and an elbow. Then flatten out the hand. I use my knife to cut out a triangle at the edge to give me a thumb, and then the rest of the fingers. I attach these to her with some water. I want both of the hands to be resting on her knee. When placing arms on figures, always remember that the thumbs face in. I've made loads of cake toppers where I've been really happy with them, and I've taken loads of pictures and posted them on Facebook for the world to see, and then I've realised that I've put a hand on backwards. I did it on my leprechaun cake topper. Now she has arms, I add her sleeves. So in the same way I did the skirt, just much smaller, I add a couple of little ruffles to each shoulder. I added a little detail to the top of her dress with my sculpting tool, and now I can start her head. So back to the skin tone modelling paste, I start with a ball. I run my finger straight across the centre and use my thumbs to push in some eye sockets. Also at the same time, working in a bridge for the nose. I use my sculpting tool to help me define the nose, and then use my fingers to smooth out any marks. Now I use my knife to open a mouth and use a few different sculpting tools to create some lips. I push in a couple of eye sockets with my balling tool. I'm going to start adding some colour to her face now before I put in her white eyes and mess them up. So I add some dry pink rainbow dust for her cheeks and some lavender for her eyes. The colour I'm adding to her lips is called Pumpkin Pie. I'm just adding a tiny bit of clear food grade alcohol to this to make a paint. Now I can create two tiny petal shapes for the eyes. And I'm going to paint her eyes with a couple of greens and a pink. Again, mixing these with a little clear food grade alcohol. Then I paint in her pupils with some black food gel. I also use this to add her eyelashes. Then I just add a tiny bit of brown, again diluted with clear food grade alcohol, for her eyebrows. This is usually where I mess the whole thing up. And now I can add her head onto her neck. For her fairy wings, I roll out a sheet of white modelling paste and use a butterfly cutter that I have, and I just cut out the middle. I did leave it to dry overnight before decorating them. I just went over them with a few different colours before adding some painted details. For her hair, I have a very light orange with a little brown mixed in. I'm going to add her hair in several sections, but I want her to have a couple of braids as well. So I start with a long thin strand of fondant and add a pattern with my sculpting tool. I add some bigger sections bit by bit and score in the hairlines with my sculpting tool as I go. I leave the back of the hair until last so that I can add her wings, which I just stick to more of her hair coloured fondant. I also add a bun to the top of her hair because I thought it would look nice. Now I just add a little more shading with my dry dust, just anywhere you would see shadows. Once the wings have dried in place, I can then paint the back of them. And finally, I just want to add a few pearls on her dress. So I made loads of petals from modelling paste, ruffle the edges and form a circle. I use kitchen roll to slightly lift the petals while drying to give them a little more movement. Of course, these will be removed once the petals are dry. Add a little pink dust to the petals and then put her straight on top. And there she is. I do quite like her. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I bring you a new cake tutorial every single Wednesday, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and of course share. Hopefully I will see you next week. Thanks guys, bye!